So the Resident Evil series has had 4 remakes in the last 20 years. Capcom first decided to remake the OG Resident Evil game 2 decades ago. And in this 2002 remake, they of course improved the graphics, the sound design, and it even had a few gameplay changes. Fast forward 17 years and we have the Resident Evil 2 remake. This is the one that really let Capcom double dip with the Resident Evil series in my opinion. With all the years that passed, it made the remakes of these fan favorite games hit just a little harder this time around. The evolution of game development allowed for a complete overhaul, a whole new generation of graphics, controls, design choices, and even plot changes. Now unfortunately there was a hiccup with the Resident Evil 3 remake, even though I enjoyed it, but it looks like they've gotten back on track with the 4th one.
Temperance, child.
What? Oh no, see that's what we not about to do.
Now personally, I played this game over on the PS5 and it ran pretty smooth. In my 2 playthroughs that I did, I didn't run into any glitches, game crashes, or have any type of frame drops. I played it in performance mode with ray tracing turned on, and the graphics were pretty clean, but as for the rest of the game, it definitely builds upon the remake formula. The story gives you more context compared to the original, and they flesh out the characters a lot more. They did make Ashley a little less annoying, even though I still don't really like escorting someone who can't defend themselves, especially since that's the main goal of this entire game. They also don't allow you to tell Ashley to stay put anymore. You can only tell her to stick close or like fall behind a few steps. And even though this does suck, I do kinda understand why they changed it, because in the original, each area was connected by loading screens. So in order to advance past the door, Ashley would need to be right there with you to do it. And since the remake removes almost all the loading screens, it probably would be kinda hard for her to stay put when you could just leave at any time. But on the bright side, you don't have to worry about using healing items on Ashley. If she gets hit, she just falls to the ground and then you can pick her up. In certain sections, it can be kind of frustrating, but at least you aren't wasting resources, so I like that change for the most part. And speaking of resources, when you're using a typewriter, you can send certain items to storage. The only downside is that you cannot send ammo to your storage. So if you have a weapon that you're not using and you have ammo for it, it has to just kind of sit in your inventory, or you can, I guess, discard it. But the inventory system for the most part is pretty much the same thing. They did add different type of inventory cases that give you bonuses depending on which one you have equipped. You can put up to 3 charms on your case, which are basically like bonus perks, and to unlock those you actually need tokens you find throughout the game, or you can earn them at the shooting range. So the shooting range does have more of a purpose this time around, and there are a few other quality of life changes that I do feel like they missed out on. The first one would be a waypoint system. They have new and redesigned areas in this remake, so having a waypoint system would have made backtracking a lot more easier. I do wish they also would have let the FOV setting let you zoom out just a little bit more, because I feel like the camera can be too close on your back even when you have it maxed out. But in terms of gameplay, I do feel like the base movement speed is a little slow, especially compared to the original game. There is a charm you can unlock to increase the movement speed, but you have to rely on luck to be able to get that. And another thing is that the hitboxes can be inconsistent, and not just for the enemies, but the environment itself. Sometimes your shots will literally just not land because a wall is like taller than it appears. And I think most of these things are why the game feels a little clunky at times. I will say that I do like how they added a parry system. It feels super satisfying and it helps the combat flow. I do think they should have allowed you to throw your knife in this game. I feel like it would have made sense based on the lore with Krauser, and it could have been like a distance closing attack. But besides that, the gore is pretty crazy in the combat. You can dismember somebody completely and you can see the plagas still moving in them when they're dead, and I thought that was pretty cool. But even though they still have a darker tone in this remake, it keeps the cheesy sense of humor, which I appreciate. They did, however, remove the QuickTime event sections. The only QTE you have now is like a dodge for certain attacks. They even revamped the puzzles, but some of them can be, a little tedious depending on how much patience you have. Even some of the gameplay sections can be frustrating because of the amount of resources you're given versus the amount of enemies they spawn. I think this is mainly from dynamic difficulty though, that you have throughout the game. If you start doing too well, they'll, stop spawning health for some reason. But as soon as you die one time, I had this happen, you'll randomly get a health items in your inventory. So if you don't have much patience, it might stop you from enjoying the game. But if you're thoroughly looting and upgrading, you shouldn't have too much of a problem. But of course, the merchant makes his return in this remake with new and old gear. He also allows you to trade spinels with him to unlock other items. But one problem I did have was one of these trades was the laser sight, right? And in the original game, almost all of your weapons had a laser sight automatically. In this one, the laser sight only works with 3 pistols and that's it. But luckily, the spinels needed for trading are easy to come by. Thanks to the new side missions, you can complete certain tasks for the merchant in exchange for those spinels. And some of the tasks lead you to fighting optional mini bosses. The mini bosses, those fights were pretty cool. It was something different compared to the old game, of course, which didn't have that. And then you also have new enemy types just in general, which spices things up as you go. But I enjoyed most of the changes they've done with this remake. I feel like they did it justice for the most part. They even allow you to switch back to the old soundtrack and it changes the sound effects with it too. So it can, make it feel like you're playing something new, but obviously have the old feeling to it as well. I will say that I wish they would have had an option to turn off the breathing sound effects, because for some reason, I don't know why everyone is breathing so loud in your ear. But please make it stop. Last but not least, we got to talk about that mercenaries mode. It got added a week or 2 ago and it's probably one of my favorite things about this game. You have 4 playable characters that have different loadouts and they have each a special ability. You can play on the 3 different main areas of the game: the village, the castle, and the island, of course. And the goal is to kill as many enemies within the time limit as possible. And Hunk is easily one of my favorite characters. That man be snapping necks and his ability gives him unlimited ammo too. Then you got Krauser, who can use his mutated arm as like a special move. Like, it's just a super fun mode and hopefully they add more characters in the future for it. And speaking of modes, they're still missing the Separate Ways DLC and I believe Assignment Ada. So I'm assuming it'll be added in the future as a free update, just like how the Mercenaries one was, but who knows when that will be. But overall, I would say that this sets a new standard for these Resident Evil remakes. It solidifies the blueprint and it sets up future remakes for success if done correctly. Resident Evil 5 is probably my favorite Resident Evil, so I'm excited to see what they do with that game, and then maybe they can redo Resident Evil 6 completely, because I heard that one wasn't that great. But they pretty much have the tools to rewrite history if they keep doing these remakes like this. I would actually recommend this game, but only if you have the patience for Resident Evil. This won't be for everybody, especially with how tedious certain sections can be. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about Resident Evil 4's remake in the comments if you've played it. And yeah, that's gonna wrap up today's video. Hopefully you guys did enjoy, and I'll see you in the next one, man. Peace.